It's only for like 2 days.
Everybody gonna be sitting on their porch.
Don't get 6 o'clock tonight.
Everybody gonna be sitting
I
outside,
might get
just like,
my pallet and get out on the patio.
exactly.
That's
Ain't
not
nobody
the white.
coming inside for
That's
like,
not the white.
It is.
Okay.
nobody's coming
Come on up
inside.
front. Saying the preacher to and you sitting next to the bike, right? That's you. Yeah, I go with Chairman. Paul Terry, Ron, but yeah, me, Ed, LBJ, and Ed on me.
Yeah, it used to be easier when the chairman had a specific device. Chavez is in the
There's not a new one until in the middle of
How
summer.
many we got? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 4 still need one more.
Some else? And what about Roy?
I don't know. I thought I saw Roy on staff.
Not yet. Oh, I'll try.
Yeah,
So we're
that's
gonna
what I
sit
figured.
there.
But remember, I got it.
I'm just sitting here talking to LBJ, so as soon as you guys are ready, I'm ready.
Okay. Get poor, we go, but I'll be on the
Commissioner Young is on his way.
Tell them to come on. We can talk, get to an action item, get it forward, and then we'll deal.
There's an uptick, there's an
Everybody
uptick
else on
here.
time.
We have somebody in the
Come and come. Not,
Can you give me a second to double check, just make sure
Yeah.
streaming is.
Go ahead, cause I like to go ahead, you know, we don't need to pull unless we got an action item. And, these other people down here on time.
Second, 6 months later.
Y'all always do what they do.
John wants to go to the military.
But you serving now? I signed up. I tried to sign up, but then, they wouldn't take me because I had a tape on my shoulder.
That was old, that was cool.
I bet you can go back.
It helps.
There's some old guys that have no less in the army. Yes. Talk about that offline.
Everybody in the ready spot. I just got my chair from here. There was one, just. Let me know when you're ready.
Just wait. One contribution to-
Put it in that.
Yeah.
There's some honesty. A lot of them over there that we don't.
And the guy, the cook leader was actually trained by our training race.
That's okay. Commissioner, I just had my student over there.
So we turn around and we are.
I'd like to declare this August 14th, 2:40 p.m. Public Safety Ad Hoc Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please, Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Epperson,
Present.
Commissioner Young, Commissioner Cothran,
Here.
Commissioner Chavez,
Here, sir.
Commissioner Gage Watts, Commissioner Atkins, Commissioner Jackson, and Commissioner Burrell.
I'd like to ask Mr. Young if he would lead us in the invocation and Mr. Chavez in the pledge, please.
Yes, sir.
And just for the record, you do have 7 of 8 committee members present. That does constitute a quorum.
Please join me if you wish in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name.
thy kingdom come,
Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
If everybody please face the flag. Civilians, please place your right hand over your heart. Military and veterans may render the hand of bow salute. And let's remember our POWs and MIAs as we recite the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you so much. That brings us to agenda additions. I'm not aware of any agenda additions today unless you have any.
Sir.
Okay. We'll move forward then to public comments. We did not receive any requests for public comment in advance of the meeting, and I do not see any cards submitted. So if it is okay with you, we can move forward to new business.
If the committee would allow me to, I would like to get a report from the administration relative to the trash pickup and debris pickup in the unincorporated areas of the parish. Where are we at this point in time? Is there a potential deadline?
Yes, sir. The debris pickup is ongoing. I think that we have gotten the northern end of the parish worked on, and we're working on District 12, 10, I believe. So it's ongoing. There is a lot of debris. There's no specific deadline. We are seeking reimbursement from the state of 75% of those costs. And so we do have to work with GOSEP in order to get that reimbursement, and also coordinate an agreement with the city. The city has to go through the parish to get their reimbursement, but we are working to get both the city and the parish a 75% reimbursement on debris removal.
Okay. If you would, please note Colonial Heights, Mr. Weaver, and still some in Timberline.
Tim did it. Is there anything else?
For the most part, I've seen everything has been going well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Clerk, I'd ask you to invite someone from Public Service Commission and Homeland Security. Did we get any response from those two organizations?
We did not receive a response from Public Service Commission, and we did receive a response from Homeland Security, though they were unable to be here. One of the gentlemen in their office evidently is sick. The other one did respond that he would have liked to have been here, but he is assisting the Small Business Association to set up the Disaster Loan Outreach Center. And so that is currently one of the tasks that they're working on, and an update that he wanted to share was that that Disaster Loan Outreach Center will be available soon.
Request for information from administration. Now, the Homeland Security Department, that's under the auspices of the Sheriff's Department, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And they only have 2 people staffing that.
They have a few more than 2, but I'm not sure of the number.
Well, the thing that gets me, it appears as though every time we request some attendance from them somewhere, that they always have something that's blocking. It appears someone in that organization could come and give us a written report or whatever. So I was just thinking it was 2 people in there. What's his name? Jump and LeBlanc?
LeBlanc. But they have
Lisa Carmack.
yeah, they have Lisa Carmack, who's also in that office.
Well, maybe next time, if we would, we could ask someone. You know, everyone is always busy. It appears as though when we invite them here, you know, and all I ever see is these weather reports that's sent out, which you can get from the National Weather Service. And when things of this nature happen, the people look to us as commissioners, you know.
Yes, sir.
They see us, but they never see or hear from these other people direct, and all we can do is tell them what they tell us, you know.
Yes, sir. We'll communicate with them and see if there's a specific date that they are available, that we can ensure that we can.
Did you say a specific date?
Yeah, to see when they are available.
Well,
Since, you know.
I'd like a specific individual or some person at whatever time, because we do send out ample notices way in advance.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Burrell.
Madam Administrator, I thought the parish was emergency.
The parish, I mean, as a parish president, we have to declare the emergencies working through the Homeland Security. But the Office of Homeland Security is the one that coordinates those processes for us. No, sir, we provide funding to them. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm like, Chair, I'm a little bit confused, but every time we send a message, there's somehow there is. So come Thursday, I would like you all to, more forcefully tell that we do expect to have a hearing.
I'll,
Budget time is coming up, and I don't have the time to let them know that could be a problem.
yes, sir, I'll communicate that to that office.
If I could remind everyone to make sure your mics are on green.
I'd like for you to bring that up once the persons that are here present, and then we'll do that last, okay? All right, any other concerns of any commissioners? Okay, all right, we will go to our agenda. The first item is 6.1, follow-up discussion from August 2nd meeting regarding storm response, recovery, etc. I see Mr. Corbin is here, and I see Dr. White. Did I see Dr. White? She's still here? Okay. Dr. White, if you would come forward and just give us an update on the COVID situation. A lot of people called me, and we've been seeing it on the news about supposed to be another variant that's outcoming. And then, Michael, if you have anything you'd like to share with us from last meeting, you will be next. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, good afternoon. Martha White, Medical Director with Public Health. So just a brief update. First, you're going to no longer see any case count numbers anymore for COVID. Remember I talked last time about how we don't get negative tests. We only get positive tests from doctors' offices when people are sick enough to go to their doctor's office. So those case numbers are really not the best numbers to track. So now we're going to start treating COVID like we treat flu. So we have what we call an ER surveillance system, and we have what we call sentinel physician offices. So we will monitor both physicians' offices as well as ERs, urgent cares as well, to see how many people are coming into their clinics or ER, EDs for COVID-like illness that they are thinking may have COVID and that they are testing for COVID. That's what we do for flu. You remember we have flu-like illness, and you'll see that on influenza-like illness, and you'll see the percentages are climbing. That's what we're going to see. It's going to call, instead of ILI, influenza-like illness, you'll see CLI, COVID-like illness. And so that number will be reported. And then they're still going to, of course, monitor how many people are in our hospitals. So this week we do have a number. We have about 3,300 new cases like we did last week, very similar to last week. And we have about 170 people in the hospital. That's up about 10. That's an average for the week. And we are still having like 1 to 2 deaths a week. It's not a high number, but it's still people who are being in the hospital and people who are passing away. So it is not negligible. If it's your family member, right? So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is you're hearing about these different variants, right? And so there's a variant called EG.1 and that 0.5, I'm sorry. All of the variants that we're seeing right now are from the Omicron strain. They're just Omicron that's made a few little tweaks to itself. Unfortunately, the two ones that are the most common right now, which are EG.5 and FL.1.5.1, which is not really important to you, but those two are the ones that we're seeing the highest climb right now in Louisiana. We're seeing the EG.5 more prominently, and it's about 15% of the cases that we're seeing, so it's definitely climbing. The important part about these two strains is that they the way they've changed themselves is they're able to escape our immune response. So we're not as protected from these two by the vaccines as the previous Omicron. The new vaccine that's coming out in September will hopefully protect us better from these. That's what I'm hearing, is it has a good response unless there's some new change that comes again. So if you have not had your bivalent booster, I do suggest that you get that until this next booster comes out. There's a booster that's coming out, they're saying end of September, mid-September. It could be as late as October. But you'll still have time to get both. If you want to wait, that's your choice. Of course, some people may not want to get both shots, but you definitely want to make sure you get that new booster that's coming out. And like I said last time, it's probably going to be like influenza, where we have a new booster every year, because COVID seems to be like influenza, a master at changing itself. So that's really,
Okay, and anyone would like a question or comment of Dr. White? We have Mr. Burrell. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Burrell.
so it's not more deadly. It is definitely more contagious. So we're seeing it spread pretty quickly through families, or like if you have a gathering and someone's sick, we do see it spread more rapidly. It is making people feel pretty bad. It's like a pretty good flu. And my husband had it actually again, bless his heart. But what we've seen is pretty significant muscle aches. Like, remember those really bad flu aches that you can get? High fever, and a cough, and really significant headaches. And I would suggest, if you are feeling badly that way, it comes on pretty quickly, just like the flu. You know, you could be feeling fine, and then that afternoon you just feel like you got run over by a bus, just feel like you got knocked down. Make sure you go see your doc and have them see you, because if you start Paxlovid, which is that medicine that you can take by mouth for COVID, it does decrease the amount of time that you're sick, and it decreases the severity of your symptoms. So for him, you know, he didn't go get tested. And so, you know, docs, we like to do as I say, not as I do. Well, he was probably sick about 4 to 5 days of feeling pretty bad. And then he started getting better, and his cough hung around for about 10 days. But if you take this Paxlovid, they're saying about 2 to 3 days of feeling bad, so it'll cut it about in half. So it is worth it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. White, I think the government had declared the pandemic or the COVID area over a certain period of time. Was that in May?
Yeah, the end of May.
Well, my wife and I kind of contracted it, and I'm pretty sure that's what I had, that with ER of 5.
Right.
And I had those symptoms, and she went to LSU Austin, as one of the emergency clinics over there off of Erie. Do you know that test cost her $540?
I mean, honestly, if they're charging you that kind of money, and I don't know, I will have someone look into that, because that doesn't
I'll
seem.
give you a copy of the bill. And look, we don't want this to be an issue with people.
No.
You know, you see what I mean?
I agree.
So I was thinking, since they declared the pandemic over, see, the government was picking up the costs on those.
Right.
Am I right?
Yes.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
No.
Yeah, I'll bring you a copy of the bill.
I know. So let me check and find out about that.
I went to the VA, so VA, VA didn't.
But if that's the case, I mean, it's almost worth just testing
I'll
yourself.
bring you a copy of that. Would you
It's like
please check into that? Because we
$20.
don't want nothing to deter people that may not have any kind from going out. You know what I mean? And
Right.
getting tested properly,
sir.
rather than staying around getting sick or spreading it more.
Right.
You know
I
what I
agree.
mean?
I'll find out, and I'll email you what they tell me.
Anyone
Anything
else?
else?
Ms. Burrell again.
The regular test that you get, the rapid test, it will detect the new virus
Yes.
also?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Okay.
COVID's not gonna be, we may be done with COVID, but it's not done with us. So it's gonna be around and, it's gonna, as it goes through in the other countries and it spreads and they have their seasons and then it comes over to us. So, it's gonna be like influenza and we're gonna see it. Hopefully, we don't get a really bad strain. Just like influenza, we have good years and bad years. So hopefully, we'll have a break from any bad strains.
Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
All right. Okay, Michael, any follow-up from last week? I noticed I got an email where you showed a red vehicle plowed into a power line pole.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's always good to be here, and let me just note that SWEPCO is always happy to attend a meeting. From
Our constituents put the heat on us about you.
from our last conversation on August 2nd, I don't think I had any action items to take away from that meeting, but I will report that our crews are still out doing a little bit of finishing work. We talked about the fact that there were still a lot of dead limbs hanging in trees. We are continuing to see those fall in certain areas. And this past week, we've seen an abundance of entire trees or large limbs, very large limbs from trees that are breaking off on a blue sky day with no wind, largely because it is so hot and it's so dry. So I looked right before we came over here, and we had a scattering of outages across the city and across the parish, but it was not, big numbers at all. So I think we're still going to be plagued with that until we start to get some rain and the temperatures subside a little bit. But from our side, not really anything new to report, but certainly glad to answer any questions.
Anyone, any questions or comments of Mr. Corbin? Michael, I got hit pretty good, folks that watched the meeting, and this is, like I say, you got jailhouse lawyers and jackleg preachers, but you got people with information that's not factual,
Right.
So one email I got stated that before AEP got involved with SWEPCO used to keep the right-of-ways cut better. Now, what's the situation that
Our
ANP buy SWEPCO, or SWEPCO stand alone, or are they the same company?
Well, I mean, we are a unique operating company within AEP. So we ultimately report back to Columbus, Ohio, and as do 7 other operating companies like SWEPCO. But we make the majority of our decisions locally, and oftentimes in conjunction with the Public Service Commission of Louisiana. So we still trim, we still have forestry programs, we have vegetation management programs, and the distinction between those two is vegetation management is mostly vines and small undergrowth that we can spray for instead of actually having to send folks out with saws and cutters, or in some cases even helicopters to do that trimming. But we have a robust trimming plan annually. This has just been an odd year because it has been mild and wet up until the last month, and trees and bushes are growing at a very fast rate.
Okay. A lot of my concerns that I'm getting, they saying AEP SWEPCO just want to drop the ball, making excuses. And they say that they think that the tree cutting and the right-of-way clearing needs to be more aggressive. And another thing is, been getting, and Public Service Commissioner not here, but AT&T was here, but we're getting a certain tier of the power line belong to somebody else, and that's not our responsibility. That's Comcast, that's Infinity, that's AT&T.
Right. Our lines are at the top of the poles, and we trim for our lines. You can easily drive around the city and see communication lines, those lower ones on the pole, that are full of overgrowth. They're caught up in tree branches, but we don't trim that. We trim to protect the power lines. And certainly we understand after 2 long multi-day outages that everybody's on edge a little bit. And, you know, rightly so. But I think part of that is just left over from the long outages. And anytime there's a blink or a hot day and you fear there's going to be an outage, you're a little bit more attuned to it. But we're in the business of selling electricity, and that's how we make our money. So we do everything that we can to keep that power flowing and keep somebody's meter spinning. We don't like outages either because it doesn't help us.
So I guess what we need to do is get the Public Service Commission in so we can, I mean, it appears this should be a collaborative effort one way. You know what I mean? If you come out and you say, hey, that growth is not up to the power lines, but it appears as though somebody, it's not mine, it's AT&T's. But guess what? Nothing ever gets done. But then when something happens, it comes right back to us. It's our fault. We're taking sides with the power companies. We're taking sides with the cable companies. We need to do something about that. I think we need to.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say that nothing ever happens because if an elected official or a citizen sends a picture and reports, I'm concerned about tree limbs being in contact with electric lines and I may have an outage. We send somebody out to look at it, or I'll go out to look at it sometimes. And if we determine that it is a hazard to our lines, then we are going to do something. Fortunately for the communications companies, unless a tree falls or a limb falls into the lines, tree contact doesn't impact the operation of fiber optic or any of the lines that they have out there. And not to pick on a company, but our cable TV provider in Shreveport and Caddo Parish likely has miles of abandoned lines on poles that they don't use anymore. And there's a good amount of other communication lines that are abandoned as well, because I'll get a report of a limb has fallen, or more likely at a business that an 18-wheeler's pulled in, pull the lines down. Do we know whose it is? And we can sometimes track that. We've got mechanisms to do that. And when you call that company, it's like, oh, we don't use that anymore. Just cut it.
Okay, Mr. Burrell.
I guess having been in the communication business before and dealing with those fiber cables and cables of that sort, you all normally, the power company normally many times own the poles and they rent from you all to hang their lines. Do you all have any influence on them when you have an overgrowth that is caused more by them or on their line that you all cannot say that you need to get rid of it because eventually probably going to climb on up to where you are?
AT&T owns a little over a third of the poles in Shreveport area. And we do work together. If we see a hazard, then we can report that back and forth. And there are times that we may take care of it, even though it's not necessarily a hazard on our end, and turn around and bill AT&T if there's billing that needs to happen. But if as an electric utility, you were expecting us to do all the trimming necessary to protect every wire on a pole, including those that don't involve the electricity. The budget to do that and the impact on electricity rates would skyrocket.
Now, my question is the hierarchy of responsibility. If they're your pole and you have AT&T and you have Cablevision, then what is the hierarchy of responsibility? If AT&T and Cablevision, there's growth there, who responsible? Do they fight that out or?
They would be responsible for coming in and doing trimming and.
Well, when you say
Gen-
they,
and-
you got two of them now.
Well, and there could be 10 or 12
Pointed at
companies
each other.
because there's lots of communication companies. But generally, at that level, it's whenever somebody sees a loss of service in their communication line that they come out and do trimming. And I'll go back to a statement that I made August 2nd when I was here. Anytime you see trees under and into power lines, somebody planted those trees and are not maintaining those trees. Because when we build lines, we clear all that out, or there were no trees there to begin with. So there is a collaborative effort that needs to take place.
I'm just
with-
thinking that
with
there
tree
would be a
trimming.
concern on your part that if they're the one who's causing the problem and you all get the blame, then you all would have some sort of concern to say, look, y'all need to clean this up.
We have contact at those companies, and we do and can pass that information along, but we can't tell AT&T or Comcast or Conterra that they need to go out and trim around something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right. That's just what I'm getting into, and I can truly say that my backyard, I had some beautiful red tip pottias, and they got up, so I cut every one of them down, so I wouldn't be to blame for them. So it's nothing back there now, but still there's some vegetation that's going up the support wires, and it's coming. It's on the properties. I think what it's supposed to be 15 feet on each side of the property line. So I've cleared mine, and a lot of my neighbors have. So
Appreciate that.
we thank you. So at this point, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
Chavez.
Mr. Corbin, thanks for all your support during the storm. I know I reached out to you numerous times, and you were very amicable and got done what needed to be done. In regards to the trimming of the trees, one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if this is the contractors that are doing it, I've driven down the street and I've seen the power line and I've seen the trees, and I've just seen the contract company cut just the limbs that touch the pole, but not the other side. And if you look at it from a standpoint of physics, it's really adding a lot of weight to the opposing side of where the power line is. And my only thought is I fear for those homes that are there, because if the tree's gonna fall, it's gonna fall with the most weight. Is there a stipulation on how the contractors are supposed to trim those trees, or can you enlighten us on that?
We trim to protect our assets, not necessarily the beauty of the tree. And trimming is controversial anyway. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. It would be wonderful if we could have the cavalry of tree trimmers come in immediately following a storm and a long outage, because people would be less likely to object to trimming. But if we went in next month, especially in areas with mature trees, and began to trim, citizens would be back up at this podium to speak to you, to speak to city council. Stop the trimming, they're ruining my tree. And because of the placement, a lot of these, especially mature trees, there's really no way to top them or even them out and protect our assets. We oftentimes will talk to a customer or a resident, and we may take the tree down, but they have to remove it. If it's a threat, just take the tree all the way down. But a lot of times the residents don't want to do that because they don't want to go to the expense of having to have the tree removed.
If that tree falls on their asset, is it up to their homeowner's insurance to cover it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's my only question. Thank you, Mr. Corbin. Thanks, Chairman.
All right.
Good question.
Yes, Mr. Carter.
Yes, Mr. Corbin. What should a citizen do if concerned about tree growth or pole leaning? What should they actually do?
We survey our systems daily. Our people are out and they keep their eyes open. Oftentimes you'll see a leaning pole, and it's just because there's so much weight at the top of it. There may be transformers at the top. Could be that a guy wire has gotten broken and that's made it lean a little bit. It still works efficiently, and a leaning pole's not a problem. If it's leaning to the point that the wires look like that's all that is holding it up, or it's broken at the base, then we would encourage citizens to call and let us know about that possible hazard. But we have a very robust pole replacement plan each year as well, where we go around and look at our oldest poles and make sure that they're replaced.
Okay. What number should they call?
Excuse me, 888-216-3523.
888-216-3523.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, Michael, I just got a text, at the intersection of Border Lane and Pines Road, looking north toward Jefferson Page. On the right-hand side, there are several poles that it appears to be listing almost 15 to 20 degrees. Would you look at that, please, sir?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more comments of Michael, we appreciate you coming. We're going to move on in our agenda since we have a few minutes before our official, our work session meeting began at 3:30. Before we leave, I would like to make a motion, if I can get a second, and speak on it. I would like to move that this committee would recommend that there be a citizens disaster response, recovery, and review committee. If I can get a second. Okay. All right, it's been moved by the chair, seconded by Mr. Carlton. My reason for getting this committee, we had a juvenile justice committee. And a lot of our citizens, they think that we just do a lot of rhetoric, And these issues, we know they've been happening a long time. We know there are extenuating circumstances. We know there are acts of God, things in nature that we can't control. But I think if we allow our citizens to have a committee where they can speak direct with these people and they can be representatives of the communities, getting this information, they can really understand what's going on rather than the individuals that's in charge of these things coming to us and then we in turn to the committee. And I would hope that we would go along with this. And the makeup of it, I would hope that it would be one individual from each commission district and maybe one citizen that's appointed by the administration. And I think that would be a good start. Any questions or comments relative to that? Okay, hearing or seeing none, we will vote, Mr. Clerk.
All right, and I am just getting that final note down. And Commissioner Epperson.
Yay.
All right, Commissioner Young.
No.
Commissioner Kaufman.
Yay.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage-Watt.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Jackson. This is the establishment of a Citizens Disaster Response and Review Committee. And Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
And I'm so sorry, my microphone wasn't on for that.
Yes.
But that final answer was a yes. And the final vote there is,
Point of order, this is a volunteer group, right?
yes, this is, that motion does carry. It has 6 in support and 2 in opposition. And this was to recommend a Citizens Disaster Response and Review Committee where it would consist of one person.
Let me correct you. Citizens Disaster Response, Recovery, and Review Committee.
Thank you. And that would consist of one person from each commission district and one citizen appointed from the administration.
Okay, next order, please.
That brings us to discussing public health concerns regarding the Silver Lake Apartments, water access, dangerous heat, etc.
Commissioners, I don't know if you all had seen the report of the on the television the weekend where the Silver Lake Apartments, and I think that's the apartment complex that used to be Woodlawn Terrace. And before that, it was Bel Air, which I would like to say that the home that when we came to Shreveport, still stands there, 6608 Cliff Street, Apartment D. However, it was in a lot better shape than it is now because our folks wouldn't allow nothing that's going on over there to happen back then when I was growing up. It's just a sin and a shame that you can have an absentee landlord. You can have citizens that come on and say they don't have any water in this day and time when we are averaging 105-degree temperatures. So I had reached out to Mr. Jones, Commissioner Stephon Jones, that's in his district, and we spoke about it. And of course, I still have ties. I represented that area for 12 years, plus I lived there. And I think it's our responsibility to look and see what we can do. This heat wave is a disaster in itself, just as the windstorms are, the hurricanes, and the tornadoes and the floods. And I reached out to the administration and I asked them if there's anything that we could do, if there's any funding that we had for the disaster that could possibly be used to help those people out, rental assistance, things of that nature. So at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Bryant if she was able to find out anything relative to that situation.
Yes, sir. We reached out to Ms. Bonnie Moore with Community Development with the city, who was coordinating efforts to assist the tenants of the previous Woodlawn Terrace. Based on the conditions of the facility, it appeared that there was no management oversight and the property could actually have been abandoned. But there were some residents, most of the residents had relocated, but were some residents still there who simply didn't have another option. So we worked with Ms. Moore along with some other agencies. The commission had previously allocated funding to Hope Connections to provide temporary housing to folks such as hotels and that nature. We also have worked with Providence House to provide relocation assistance for more longer-term housing. And so we've communicated with Ms. Moore that both of those sources can be used for these residents for the immediate concern of temporary housing, and then the more longer-term relocation where we would assist with first month's deposits and moving assistance. That's where we're working towards from the parish perspective to help get those residents out of those facilities. It's my understanding that the facilities did not have electricity nor water, and there were children who started school with no access to services. And so they consider that an immediate healthcare emergency. So we have been working to try to get those citizens. It's my understanding they have relocated them and working on longer term housing.
Okay. I thought that this would be something that should come under purview of this committee. Are there any questions or comments relative to what we've just heard? Ms. Watts and anyone else? Yes. Ms. Watts and Mr. Cawthorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that we just received an emergency declaration from the governor's office due to the extreme heat conditions in Louisiana. So if we could, administration looking to see what type of funding is going to be available to perhaps assist in this disaster that is going on right here in our community. And I know there are plenty more that probably would benefit from this. So I'm glad that you brought that to this committee because it is definitely a hazardous condition and a public health concern with no running water. That's just totally unacceptable. And I would also like to know, what are the plans if it's abandoned? What is the city of Shreveport, who's going to take over the property?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Cawthorn.
Yes, I also received a call from the school, actually, an email this morning concerning the students that attend their school and lived in those quarters. I'm glad to hear, first of all, that the parish administrator was on top of that. In addition to prayerfully, everyone has been moved out because again, without water, without electricity, things of this nature, that's very brutal, especially to kids. So the thing is, as we continue to move forward, we have to work something out to get with the city or get with whomever is responsible for this area, and something needs to happen because again, that is just, it's not only not right, but that is actually brutal and inhumane actually to treat a person like that, just to cut off utilities and things of this nature. Thank you.
Ms. Bryant, if you would, I would like for us to get together with, I heard you mention Ms. Barney Moore, any persons from the city, as well as the parish. I'd like for us to get a formal press declaration as to what we will be doing or trying to do, so we can let the people know that we aren't someone that's are not cognizant of what goes on behalf of our citizens that are really in dire straits.
Yes,
And
sir.
if you could, I'd like for you to set that up tomorrow if you can.
A press conference for tomorrow?
Yes,
or-
ma'am. Either some form of formal communication as to what we are doing relative to that situation
Yes, so we can get a
as soon
written,
as possible.
we can get a written
On press
press
release.
release. Yeah,
what-
we can get a press release.
Make, as long as it's, right. And let's make sure that we let folks know that the commission is taking the lead in this situation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bryant, could you explain to me a little bit more about the situation there? So it's an apartment building that's been abandoned, and there's still tenants in there, but they're not paying rent to anyone anymore, but they were never evicted. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's my understanding that the property is not being managed, and there were several tenants there, but some have relocated, but there were some that did not have a place to go and were still living there.
So
with
the
no-
landlord is gone.
That's what it appears.
And that's why the utilities are no longer functioning, but the
But the
tenants were never evicted.
No, sir, not that I'm aware. I
see.
don't
So
know if they
that's-
actually
and so
received
they were
eviction notices, but there was no one there to actually evict them if they
Okay.
did receive them.
So, and that's how they ended up staying in a building that had been turned off.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just a point of information, Mr. Young, the individual that we brought some assistance to wanted to pay her rent, but nobody was in the office and they didn't know where to go. Didn't know anything about it. Mr. Askins, I'm sorry I missed you. I didn't read the book. Go ahead. Okay. All right, seeing any further comments from this committee, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner, did you want me to share that
Sorry,
information?
would you share the information from that Homeland Security?
Yes, sir.
I always like for people to speak in behalf of themselves if they could, but we'll do that. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you. In the interest of those who may benefit from the information, they did share that the SBA small business loan for disaster loans is available now, and those applications can start being taken today, Monday, August 14th, and our deadline to apply is August 25th. And they are open Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. People can also apply for them online at disasterloanassistance.sba.gov. And those loans come in different categories. There are up to $500,000 loans for repairs for homeowners to repair or replace real estate damage, and up to $100,000 to replace personal property. That's for homeowners. Renters are eligible also for $100,000 to repair or replace personal property. Businesses are eligible, could be eligible for up to $2 million to repair or replace real estate, machinery, and equipment. And small businesses are also able to apply for economic injury to help give them working capital or obligations till normal operations resume. And I believe that loan is also up to $2 million. Those are low interest loans that are based on the financial health of the applicant, and they can be as low as 4% for businesses, 2.3% for private homeowners, and 2.5% for homeowners and renters with terms of up to 30 years. And there is a phone number, 1-800-659-2955, where people can get more information.
That it, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think Mr. Berea had requested someone to be here Thursday.
Yes, yes, sir. They're actually, a representative is supposed to be here today under the admin report.
Be here today?
Yes,
Okay,
representing the
good. That way they
SBA.
can articulate that, and it'll get a broad band of coverage, and commissioners that may have some questions or comments. Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. For this committee, hearing the seeing none, so we adjourn.